So this is kind of a big deal. If you're interested in systemic thinking and if you're a software development engineer, this is actually kind of important. Now, I am not a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. I do not play one on TV, all that fun stuff. But when I took constitutional law, Chevron deference was kind of a big deal. And this means that none of that education is useful anymore, which is kind of scary. So, what is Chevron deference? Well, my understanding is somebody who's not a lawyer and who only studied this a little bit before he realized he could not afford to become a lawyer is that Chevron deference equates to the idea that the most senior person on the subject should be the one making the decisions. We see this a lot in technology where the most senior engineer on the team is the one that's asked to do the architecture or make the final call, weigh the options, etc. It's basically comes down to, hey, the person who knows should be making the choice because somebody who doesn't know should not be making the choice. It's a lot better to have the senior person do it than having the junior engineer be the person making the decision for the entire company because their choice might be bad. It might actually kill the company. In this case, it means that if somebody who works for the Department of Energy has to make a decision on how to store nuke stuff, they're going to be the ones that do it versus somebody in an office in DC who doesn't have any scientific background. But that was just upturned. I hate to say it, but this is the beginning of that movie Idiocracy being real. In fact, thinking about it, I can help but feel like maybe it actually started a few years ago. I'm not happy about this. I believe that the people who have educated themselves and know the risks should be making the long-term planning decisions. And I feel like because the because the Senate and the Congress are so backed up and so dysfunctional, what's effectively happened now is that the three branches of government are no longer the same. They're no longer considered equal because a few of them are just simply incompetent and don't work. And that scares me. It also means that as a software development engineer who's looking at systems level thinking, I need to change my perspective on things because I'm an expert. And what they've basically said is experts don't get to make a choice anymore, businesses do. And if you are not a business, then you don't get to make choices. Now, it's obviously not as bad as that. There's actually a lot of really fun stuff that has been explicitly dictated by the right people to not be considered something they have to roll back. But this is 40 years of case law, and a lot of that stuff is fairly settled, and now they want to roll it back. The fun thing about this is that one of the judges involved literally is the son of a woman that was impacted by the original decision. And so he literally rolled back a case that was a win for his mother, which is wow. Imagine being a parent and having your kid roll back the legal battle that you've based your entire financial life on for the last 40 years and have them undo that. So that's going to be interesting. But basically, what it comes down to, if you read the decision, especially the dissent piece, I highly recommend you read the dissent piece. It comes down to the experts should be making the decision. If there's any ambiguity or any kind of choice that needs to be made or figured out at the base level, the people doing the work, then an expert should be doing it. Basically, what they've decided instead is, oh well, the government has to figure out every single detail. This is analysis paralysis. This is an intentional attack on the American infrastructure. And this is built to build out a bigger government. Now, that obviously isn't the intention of the GOP here. The GOP fought against this and got it thrown out because, in their mind, it's going to create smaller government with less power. But what they don't understand is that the backlash for this is that everybody will be standing still and unable to legally do their jobs, including the GOP, because they'll be constrained by this. And if they're not working, then why employ them? Okay. But if they're not working, then are they doing their fiduciary duty? And so the issue there is now what this does is it points out that the decision making process for the Senate and so forth is so bad that they are now the problem because they're going to get a lot more things thrown at them. They are going to get a lot more questions asked of them. They're going to be asked to make a lot of choices. They're going to be asked to answer questions that they don't know anything about. And who knows? We're going to have some chaos for sure. But in the end, it might just be something that ChatGPT does for them. I don't know. There's a old legal tactic called a document bomb. And the idea there is that you are actually just, you have a gigantic moving truck show up with millions of pages of paper. And you show up at their door and you say, "Sure, you asked for this information. Here it is in the worst printing and font possible. It's all in Comic Sans, and it's backwards, and you have to throw it up in front of a mirror to read it. But here it is, and the tools to wade through that will win. But what's going to happen is you're going to have people that don't understand science making choices about science." And that, in my mind, says that idiocracy has already started. The bigger issue here is that if you envision the government as a directed acrylic graph, the Chevron Deference decision was initially created to move the events and decision making down to the root leaf nodes of the graph. This basically forces all that back up to the root. Now, if you're a software development engineer, you know what this means. You're going to have a lot of contention at the root. You're going to have a lot of problems with locking and unlocking when it comes to different threads at the root of the directed acrylic graph. You were basically forced to not scale. That's what this does. It removes the ability for the government to scale. They can't farm it out to an expert anymore. They can't write a line that says they shall make this decision, blah blah blah, unless they explicitly say, "Yeah, Joe over there is going to, or this department is going to make that decision. We're going to vest in them the authority to do that." And that can still happen. There may be a blowback here where somebody says, "F it, we're just going to set it up so that we have an explicit enshrined in the law. This is how it works. The experts are allowed." And that, in my mind, would be the best fix for this. But I honestly believe that the political parties involved here are fighting over things. And what they're really coming down to is they're fighting for their life. I don't believe that the current caste system in America is fair to everyone. I understand and appreciate that the GOP wants to help its constituents and that its constituents are mostly the people who make billions of dollars. But that also puts them in the minority. And from my perspective, as somebody who does not make billions of dollars, I find myself thinking that the people who understand a topic should be the ones making choices on it. Now, I might be wrong, and I might only understand the engineering here when I talk about a directed acrylic graph and mutual locking on the root node to make decisions, because ultimately your representative can only do so much in a day, right? And so their work queue can only be so big. It can only have so many events in it before it pops. And so when you think about the government in terms of software architecture, This is a breaking change that will make production go down, and that scares me, as it should you.